Hello everyone, this is Luther P40. This video is going to be describing as best I can how to make the yet another HHO meter. Let me just start out with a outside piece. It's just a standard piece of in this particular instance is a standard piece of 1.5 thin wall PVC pipe. The length itself was random. It was just how big the piece of plastic was when I started. But the important part is the diameter, the interior diameter, so that the pipe is just barely bigger than my plastic tube. That's how this diameter was selected. I mean, ultimately, this tube was what everything else had to design against. And it's, like I said, it's a standard fluorescent tube cover, 4 foot long, and the length it was cut off at was basically to match the length of the material that I had. Like I've said before, ideally I would have preferred this to be a little bit taller. I didn't realize how much volume of water would, how far 1 liter would come to in this tube. But it's this, like I said, this is an 1.5 inch thin wall PVC. Doesn't have to, like I said, the diameter needs to be related to the tube that you get. This particular tube had a 2 inch. It's using a 1/2 inch, 1.5 inch to 3 inch reducer, and that's used as a base. I've got a hole drilled in the side of it. The only purpose of the hole is to allow the feeder tube to go up in through it, and it hooks into the bottom of the center tube. Now this this interior tube, the one that goes inside, it was chosen. The diameter was chosen because the end cap would just barely fit on the inside. If you look at the way this end cap fits, it's just barely smaller than it is. Other than that, the interior diameter has no relevance. And the purpose, there is a reason for having a cap on the top and a cap on the bottom. When the thing is installed, the cap on the top restricts its movement at the top, keeps it from flopping over right at the very end. Same thing for the cap at the bottom. When this comes all the way down, it actually slides over the end of this bottom cap. The distance, like I said, the length. When you're actually done with this, you actually want this top piece to be just a little bit taller than the outside interior piece. And the reason being is you don't want any water to go down inside this air tube. And the whole purpose of this is so that you're not pushing any kind of water to get gas to pass through the system. So that's this interior tube. This particular piece, just for the heck of it, just so I can explain it to you, is I believe, let me read the end cap. I creeped it off. I believe this is a 1 inch pipe. But I mean, like I said, the diameter, this outside diameter right here is the important piece, and then the interior piece can be anything you want it to be. If you look at after you have this built, what I ended up doing is I put this cap on first. I took these 2 end caps, I drilled the 2 holes. This one's just a plain hole. It's big enough, I believe it's about a 3/8 inch hole. I just used a Eudiometer and kept going down until I was happy with the size. And this one, I threaded it with some 3/8 inch NPT thread, pipe thread, and then attached my fitting to it with a piece of that yellow Teflon tape. And the way I did it, where I figured out how to cut this end up here was I drill this hole where I wanted it to be. I attached this fitting here, had this end on it, and I would stick the pipe up inside here to line up the hole in and out for where I wanted it to be, like that. And then wherever the pipe came to up here, I mean, I can't push it in all the way, but wherever the pipe came in here, I basically cut the interior pipe about 1/8 inch longer than the exterior pipe. And that when it gets pushed together, this interior is just ever so slightly taller than the outside pipe. And once I cut the pipe, once I cut the pipe for its length, then I attach the second cap, the last cap on here. So now you got the interior made, you've got the exterior made. The only thing left to do is you got to build this interior piece. And what I ended up doing here, I mean, I took some 3M, some good quality 3M electrical tape. And when you install this tape, you want to be stretching it as you do it, because what you're looking for is you want it to be rounded. I don't know if I can just describe it very well, but you're making a gasket here across this bottom edge, and you notice I did it. It's about an 1/8 inch down from the from this end from the curve. But what you're looking for is when you wrap this tape, where this pipe, where it has a friction feed right here against the bottom of this adapter, where the stop is for the adapter. You want that stop to be somewhere close to the middle of the tape. It don't have to be specific location, but somewhere in the middle of it. In other words, you don't want this edge right here, the part that's actually going to be the outside part of the seal. You want that to end up somewhere in the middle of this tape, so that when you force this in so that it's pushed into the tube, that this hose ends up being lined up to here with this hole, lined up with this hole both left and right. So in other words, it's pointing straight out this hole, but it also is the right elevation up and down. So basically this hose goes straight into this fitting. So this fitting would basically be like this. And if you can see where this hole is and this fitting, you'll see where this tape is lined up pretty much at the center of this point right here. That is how the seal is. If you want to make this permanent, you would install this. You would probably use some epoxy or maybe some silicone adhesive. But I've got this thing about wanting to take stuff back apart after I put it together. So, I mean, somehow or another you got to fix the pipe in place while the glue sets. And the reason why I did the tape is because it will, when you wrap it with the tape continuously, it's basically it's increasing the diameter of this end cap gradually by each layer of tape you put on here. And I want to say in this instance right here, I want to say this is like 10, maybe 12 wraps. It's all put on in one single run. You don't want to have a bunch of small pieces, because then every time you make another piece, you give another place for this tube to grab onto it here. The way I would probably recommend you do this is put on maybe 2 or 3 layers more than what you need, and then just start taking start taking tape off until you can get it to just fit in here. And you want it to be snug. The snugger you have it to go, the better. So like in this case, I don't think I'm going to be able to actually install it, because it takes 2 hands for me to push this back in there. This works like almost like a rubber stopper when you push this in. And like I said, if you want to make this permanent, there we go. See, now I'm thinking I might have to add some more tape. If you want to make this permanent, after you get this thing centered up and installed, what you would do is you would either put some silicone adhesive in here, or you would put some epoxy, something to hold it in place. And you'd only need just enough just to cover like this valley right in here all the way around. Because what you're doing is you're holding it in place, you're holding the elevation, and you are holding the position of it, keeping it in the center of the opening. One other thing that I forgot to do, that I haven't done yet, what I'd like to do, is that, see this squared edge, how this tube right here is squared. The one thing I would probably recommend you do before you actually put this piece on the end of the tube is to bevel this off or round it off, so it's instead of being straight up and down on a corner like this, you want it to be rounded or